this one is forward. Yeah, and this one.
Thank you, Ahmed. As you can see from that previous photograph, I've obviously put a bit of weight on since then, so it is the same person. So Ahmed, thank you very much. So as Ahmed said, we are Looker. With three of us representing Looker today. There's myself, Brent. I'm an account director for the EMEA region. We have Sebastian Fabry, who's going to have part of this presentation shortly, who's going to talk to us about some use cases that hopefully have some relevance for you. And we also have our Alliances Director, Megan Harvey, who's going to also talk to you a little bit about the future of analytics and why Looker was brought into being in the first place. So really this presentation, as Ahmed said, is very much about is giving you guys an understanding of what Looker is and why it came into being. Now we appreciate that a lot of people here have not seen Looker before, and are probably coming here based on a desire to do better analytics and use their data in a better way. So thanks for coming and having an open mind, because you're all busy, and to take a full day out of your schedule is a lot. So thanks very much for doing that. So I want to start by talking to you a little bit about who we are. So you get a feel for the kind of organisation that we are. So now we have around 1,500 customers globally. So we're a 5-year-old business. So 1,500 customers is a pretty astounding statistic. We're growing at a rate that is rarely seen in any kind of, certainly in the analytics industry anyway. We're very attractive from an investment point of view as well. So we're in I think we're in round D funding now, if I'm correct, and we've raised close to $180 million in that period. Close to $180 million in that period. Sorry, I was speaking quite low there. One of our principal investors is Google, and we have a very strong partnership with Google as well, and that'll become apparent more as we go through this presentation. We then have around 475 employees, and they are based in 7 offices globally, in EMEA and North America. An interesting statistic as well, although we're a US-based company, and now 1 in 5 of our customers comes from the EMEA region. So this is a very, very quickly growing and expanded market for us. The major partnerships we have in place is Google, typically Amazon, Snowflake and Microsoft are the big 4 really, and they're from a database point of view. So again, as you understand more about Looker and the way we're architected, the reason that partnership is important will become very apparent. And in EMEA alone, we've seen 150% growth in EMEA customers just in the last 12 months. And with our partnerships with the likes of Pegasus, that is obviously increasing east as we continue east. So it's a great success story. And a couple of questions from the people I spoke to this morning is what kind of organisations are you working with? And you can see from this there's a very, very strong cross-section of organisations from pretty much every industry you'd think of. And if you look at some of the names in there, these are what I would call aspirational businesses. These are the kind of organisations that people would aspire to be. You know, we have the likes of Facebook, we have the likes of King, the gaming firm, which are Candy Crush, those kind of things that you've probably seen. And market-wise, very, very broad. So we see a lot in e-commerce, we see a lot in fintech and financial services, but there really is no pattern to this. It's just anybody that really takes data seriously and takes accuracy of data seriously is interested in taking a look at Looker. Now, in terms of awards and recognition, this is always an important slide because people want to know, how are we recognised, A lot of people take note of analyst reports such as Gartner, which is vitally important. So this year on the quadrant we're the only new entrant. So that was a great thing for us. For a number of years we've been surprised we've not been included on that, but our customers have spoken up, should we say. Forrester Wave is another very, very influential analyst firm, and we've been appearing on a Forrester Wave for many, many years. And this year we won the award for the highest rating for strategy. And something you might not all be familiar with, but the G2 crowd. Are people familiar with that here? Fantastic. Speak to those two gents in the back then. The G2 crowd is a customer-driven survey. So whilst the other two are very much analyst firms, this is purely driven by customer satisfaction. And we've won 2 awards there as well. So the customer-driven reviews and, as Ahmed said, the fastest speed of implementation as well. Now this slide is really about trying to talk to you guys to give you an idea of what typical customer requirements are. So when people come to look at what are the kind of things or kind of problems that they face, typically they're looking to provide flexible, direct visual access to live data. Now the key takeaway from that particular point is the live data piece. Most of you people will have worked with Tableau and Power BI and Click. If you've not worked with them, you'll certainly know them. Live data is the ability to query the database live in real time, as opposed to working on an extract. Again, I've talked to a few of you over the course of this morning, and we've explained why that is important. And again, as we go through the day, this will all become very apparent. A real important one is the ease of use for non-data savvy colleagues. What does that mean? Well, you've all heard the term self-service, no doubt about it. But self-service, we find, is really, in the vast majority of cases, is failing. And it's failing for a number of reasons. And one of the key reasons is that we need to give business users the ability to ask questions of the data. Now, you might be able to do it already, I hear you say, but can you do that in such a way where you know the data is accurate, where you know the results are the same, whoever asks the question of the data? So if you take an extract of data, for example, and you apply a calculation across the top, if we're all doing that in this room and asking the same question, there's potentially a different version of the truth, irrespective of who you are. If you're querying that data live, and you're doing it in a controlled and governed environment, you should be able to pull the correct answer from the right answer and a consistent answer, and that's what Looker delivers. And again, keep repeating this, but this will all become very apparent as we demonstrate the product later on. We enable analysts to run complex queries on the spot. I'm not going to steal Seb's thunder on that one, but that is the ability to really do some deep analysis quickly, fast and efficiently, using what we call Looker-Cairo, which is our modelling layer, which we'll talk about. Governance security is key. Governance, being from the European region, we have something called GDPR. I don't know how many of you guys have heard of GDPR, but that is a big initiative now that means organisations are have to be very careful about how they use data. So one of the ways that Looker handles that is we don't move data at all. So because we're an in-database solution, we don't need to move it into workbooks or extracts. So in the European market, that is a massive value add because we're not moving data out. The other thing that gives you as a customer is you're not locked into a vendor. So if you're pulling data into memory for the purposes of speed and efficiency, you're dependent on that tool because your data resides in that tool. With Looker, we're calling a database direct and we don't need to move your data. And we can create and maintain self-service reports and dashboards. I've kind of talked about that a little bit in the previous 4 points, but what that means is Looker caters for the analyst and the business user, and it caters for the two requirements in a very specific way. So for the analyst, it gives you the ability to curate or create and maintain an environment for your business user to ask the question of the data. And when the business user gets to ask the question, they know that it's accurate and it's correct because it's in a governed model. Again, will become apparent. And a really important one, and we can't stress this one enough, the ease of sharing and collaborating with team members. That's really important. So Looker is a fully web architected product, so we don't rely on a server product to share content. We can share in a number of ways, whether it's just the cut and paste of a link, integrated with messaging apps or Outlook or email. There's a number of ways we can do it, and it really simplifies that process of sharing. And so, as I said, we have a couple of speakers in this presentation. So Megan Harvey is our Alliances Director, and she's going to talk to us about what we call the dawn of a new age, which is where BA has been and where BA is going. Thank you.
Are you going to click for me? Okay. Hi, everyone. So I think it's really important to talk a little bit about the history and kind of where we came from so that we don't repeat it as we go forward and really move into a more modern stack. So the first wave of BI was more rigid, let's say. You had very powerful databases that were extremely expensive. You had the likes of Cognos, MicroStrategy, OBIE, things like that were powerful tools. They gave a lot of governance and security. You got the right answers every time that you needed them. But getting those answers took time. It took a lot of energy in terms of working with those analysts that actually knew how to use the tools to get that information for you. So that led to frustration. Will you click me? Thank you. That led to frustration. That led to people like me I'm not technical. I couldn't get my answers. I couldn't get my data. I had to wait for someone else to curate that, to pull that for me to understand my business, for me to make decisions on that business, which obviously led to a lot of what we call as data breadlines, where you have one person that has the power and the rest of us are in line waiting for our answers. Next. So that led to the second wave, which is, okay, I'm just going to bifurcate all of the data. I'm going to let those users get their data however they can get it. So that led to CSV files, that led to self-service, that led to a mix-max of Excel and other sort of extracted data sources where people like me could actually access my data, but then I was doing things to it, and I would come to a meeting, and you would come to a meeting, and we would have different answers because we pulled the data out, we did something magical to it, and then we weren't using the same data as the other person in the meeting. So that slide is basically the graphical representation of a complete mess, which is kind of what the second wave of BI got us in terms of data chaos, in terms of having different answers to the same question. And this is so funny because we hear this time and time again. I've heard it 3 or 4 times this morning, which is we all came to the meeting, we all had different answers. How do you make a decision on that? How do you move your business forward and make an actionable decision based upon data when no one's using the same numbers? Which leads us then into how Looker differentiates, and what I would say actually is more of the third wave of BI. And I'll give it back to Brent.
Thank you, Megan. So again, as I've gone down the room this morning, we've talked about the things that make Looker different. So there's 3 things that make Looker fundamentally different from pretty much anything else on the market. And these are real key things. So the first thing is we're 100% in database. So there's no need to ETL to Looker, which is a really big thing. What you need to do is the E and L of that process, so the extract and the load. The transformation happens at runtime when the business user asks the question. And we leverage modern data warehouse technology. So back at the start of the presentation, I mentioned the partnerships we had with Google, BigQuery, Snowflake, Redshift, and we also support pretty much any variation of SQL. So we leverage those technologies. So the faster databases now we are built for, and anybody, we would argue, that is serious about analytics really should be considering, if they haven't got it already, a fast analytic database or something optimized for the job. We allow the business user to optimize, to discover insights in the entire data set. Now this is really important because if you're working with a tool that has lots of connectors, you're connecting to those different data sources kind of individually, if you like, and you're only seeing a very limited view of the data. With an in-database solution, what that gives you is the ability to ask questions of everything that's been pulled into that central repository. And I've said to you before, no vendor lock-in. Not something we always hear from the sales team, but it's really quite important if you're a buyer. You're not dependent on Looker. In terms of having your data sat there, you're dependent on the investment you've made in your data warehouse, which is really, really important. I'm going to move across to the third one, the web application architecture first. And we're different in that respect as well because we don't have any client software to deploy, so we're not a desktop download. And what that gives is a consistent experience across devices. Now we don't have, for any of you that have used Tableau or Power BI and you've tried to build for devices, you'll know that you have to specify the device that you're building for, whether it's an iPhone or an iPad or whatever it might be. Looker, because it's HTML5 and fully responsive, allows you to, if you're a business user, irrespective of the device you're using, you'll open that dashboard and it will render correctly for you. So there's no building for specific devices anymore. We talked about the sharing as well in the presentation. We have very good sharing capability and we'll show you this. And really importantly as well is the API and data publishing for external consumption. So whilst probably 60% of our business is internal BI, the other 40% is very quickly growing as well, which is external use cases. So we can embed Looker in various tools, we can embed Looker externally, we can talk to all sorts of different systems through API calls and things like that. So it's very, very flexible and we can provide that across the board. And Looker's modern approach. So this is really, although this looks like a technical slide, it looks like an analyst slide, it also speaks very well to the business user, and I'll explain why. So what we do very differently, as opposed to the transformation piece, which I've talked to a few of you guys this morning about that transformation piece in advance, we don't worry too much about that at this stage. What we look for is that data being brought into a centralized repository. Just bring it in, extract it, load it, put it all together. What will then happen is Looker will allow you to ask the question of the data. And we talked about the modeling layer, Looker-Cairo, just a few moments ago. Looker-Cairo will then transform that data on the fly. It will send a SQL query to the database and return that answer. Now, one question I had this morning was, what about the load on the database? If we're continually pinging the database, is that going to be a problem? But the way Looker operates is it only pings the database with that particular question, so it keeps the load down. Now, the benefit for a business user here is that, first of all, you're asking those questions yourself. You're not having to go through the whole process of the ETL process, waiting for an analyst to get to you. Because what happens, if you've got a 5, 6, 7 day delay in a question that you want to ask from the dashboard, you're going to forget the question, or you're just going to make up the answer. Both of which are not good if you're investing potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in a BI tool. And of course, the upshot of that is your users go back into Excel, and you're back where you started, which is a real problem. this is Megan's slide. Sorry, so I'll just push you back. Sorry.
That's all right. Okay, so one of the things that we get asked a lot is like, how does the architecture of data or of Looker actually work? So from a business perspective, I would assume that the majority of you have a lot of disparate data sources. You have some sort of business planning applications, you have some marketing analytics that you're probably running off of your website or off of ads that you're running, for SEO and things like that. Probably some transactional databases as well, as opposed to analytical. And the tricky thing in business is to get a holistic picture about all of your data across the entire company. So what we talk to customers about is actually the need for data centralization, either in a centralized database or some sort of data lake architecture. In that respect, we are agnostic in terms of what database it is. Brent mentioned our partnerships with Google, Amazon, Snowflake, Microsoft, but we technically support any SQL database. I think we have upwards of 30 different dialects that we have right out of the box within Looker. And essentially what we do is we connect to that database via JDBC connection, and you surface the results within Looker. So as Brent mentioned, there's kind of two sides to Looker, which actually really appeases both teams within an organization. So you have your agile modeling layer, which is LookML. This is an abstraction of SQL. So any of your data analysts that understand SQL this is very, very easy for them to pick up. And that gives them control within the platform to actually model out the data, define how you calculate cost of goods sold, define how you calculate your KPIs and things like that. Make that definition once, and it rolls out into the entire business. And then you have a lot of governance and security and access controls within the platform as well. Then we go on to, okay, how do you actually access the data? So like Brent mentioned, we are a browser-based tool. There's no desktop client that you have to download, so you can just log in online. One of the great strengths of Looker is that we can be deployed on-premise or in the cloud. And when I say on-premise, that is either being deployed in your private cloud or being deployed in a very stringent on-premise database. Either one works. So from there, you can actually, as a business user, you can, through a clickable interface, run your own reports. We have a visualization library, so you can select the visualization that applies to that specific data set, and you can see the data right there. You can drill into it. You can easily create dashboards, which Sebastian will show us in a little bit, and you can access the data. I'll skip over, actually, to the scheduled delivery right here. This is something that's really interesting. So it's very simple to go into Looker to those reports or dashboards that you've created and set up your own scheduled delivery. Now you can do this for yourself, for a data group, for an executive. You can have that emailed to them at 8 a.m. every Sunday morning, right when they get in the office, or you can actually have that set up as an alerting system. So we have customers that use this for fraud detection and things like that, of like, oh, I've seen a spike in inquiries hitting the database or transactions hitting the database. That's a problem. Let me look into that. And you can do that through webhooks and S3 buckets as well. I will skip over to the embedded piece, which is really interesting as well. So Looker is easily embeddable in a myriad of ways. Internally at Looker, we actually embed it into our Salesforce.com CRM instance via an iframe. You can embed it into a portal, which is interesting because a lot of our customers are starting to monetize their data to their customer base. So they're starting to see a new revenue stream come through their customers accessing that data that they're mining. You can also, if you have a business application that or any application really, you can embed Looker into that. And the controls and the access that you give to users is flexible and easy. So it's really, really nice. And then I'll skip over to the far side, left, right, I can't decide. We have REST APIs. So this is another differentiator for those other tools that you have probably used or you've heard of in the market, where you can actually take action on your data within Looker. We have REST APIs that you can use to push data out. You can update your CRM. You can send batch emails right out of Looker. You can do a lot of interesting things. So we see Looker not as a BI tool, but as a full-blown platform where you can actually integrate it into multiple streams within your business and allow your users to use one application instead of using multiple places to go and get what they need. And next, I think we'll go to Sebastian for a couple case studies, because you probably want to hear how other people use this, I would assume.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, so I'll be showing you a bit of demo working with Hamid later on, but first we just wanted to give you a couple of examples of that we think really highlights sort of the governance and the self-service that Looker can provide. There's just a couple if you want to talk about other verticals or questions or other customers, etc. Feel free to come find us after during the break. So the first one I'm going to be talking about here is Deliveroo. They're a food delivery company that grew up really, really fast. So they started only 4 years ago, just in London, and now they have over 12,000 employees. They're working in 200 cities globally across the world, and obviously that's how they're causing problem to their analytics. So they've always been very data focused, but they were unable to actually provide the user with the data they needed fast enough, right? And there were a couple of reasons for that. The first one was that the reports they did have, every time the business was evolving and they had to modify a KPI or change the way they want to report something, they had to go and individually update each of these reports, right? When you have 3 people, when you have 10 reports, that's fine. When you get to hundreds, it doesn't really scare anymore. And the second part was, sorry, the sentence is cut off here, but whenever a business user actually had a new question, maybe that's a new report or even a new dashboard, they couldn't do that themselves. They had to go back to the analysts that were already busy and ask them and wait for a new set of data or a new dashboard. And so what's changed, right? So they went back to market, they found Looker, we worked with them to enable them, and it's remarkably what's changed. So first of all, the data analyst, they're now able to define the metric once, centrally, in that governance layer that we have, and that's always going to be up to date in all the different dashboards. So if something changes, they only have one line to change or one place to change it, and the hundreds of dozens or however many they have dashboards are all going to be updated at the same time, right? That also means that now, if you have a definition that you know is correct, you can actually allow business users to go and ask their own questions and create their own report when they need it. Because as a data analyst, you have confidence that whatever they're going to build is going to give them the right answer. It's going to be the same answer as their colleague, which is also very important. And so as a result, we've seen that, so this is a quote from the case study that's online, available online, that they estimate that basically everyone in the company accesses Looker almost every day. And that goes top down from the CEO all the way to new hires who essentially as part of their induction get access to Looker and learn how to use it. And the effect has impacted both the technical team and the business team in the fact that data is more readily available to the business users. They can go and take care of their own business, right? Instead of spending time with the analyst to get access to what they need, all that sort of things, now they're able to just do it themselves and carry on with the business. Now on the flip side, it's freed up the analyst time to do more advanced analytics, the things that they really want to do, right? Some of the data scientists were writing very simple sales report and they were bored to death. Now they're actually able to do data science. They even have machine learning to do like the matching between the restaurants and the order and the deliveries, optimizing the whole system and saving money through that, right? Just simply because they freed up the time of their people, those people can go and do the job they were hired for in the first place. Cool, and this is my second example. So TransferWise, fairly similar. So also, they were a startup, right? But they were in the financial services, and they're enabling regular people and companies to transfer money peer-to-peer at market-beating rates, essentially. As basically success happened to them, the fact that they're cheaper, a lot of people started using it. They're now transferring probably a couple of $1 billion a month, each month, and the volume of data was constantly increasing, which meant that for the business users to even be able to access the data and ask questions, they had to go back to an analyst that were specialized in accessing the information wherever it was stored. And that was creating bottlenecks, right? Same type of issues here, being having to extract the data from where it's sitting and then making sense of it before providing it to the end user. That was causing a lot of delays. Now with Looker, they got to a point where each business team is actually able to access directly the information, right? Run its own KPIs, make sure they're performing up to scratch. And we also allowed them to then streamline the processes and from there on identify new revenues and kind of steadily increase the service they're able to deliver it. I didn't want to spend too much time on the TransferWise one because actually I can let them explain to you themselves.
TransferWise is basically money without borders. So what we try to do is enable people to send money across the globe for whatever reason they need to, as quickly and as cost efficiently as possible.
Having accurate data and good access to data is incredibly important.
We are an online company, so we don't have any offline branches. We have a database. Looker taps into that database and gives us all the information that we need about our customers to improve our products.
Before Looker, the way we worked was we had a couple of analysts or people who could query the database using SQL or other techniques, and we were essentially relying on those people to pull reports or generate reports that we could then refresh.
And it was all very manual and not very accessible in case you didn't know SQL. When we were comparing various data platforms for handling the data, one important thing was security and ease of use. Looker really provided both of those for us, so we can run Looker on our own servers, we have control over our own data. It's really easy for use for everybody in the organization.
For me, Looker was so simple that I didn't really need to learn it. I was able to get results very quickly and then basically move everything that I was doing, all the reports I had before, to Looker.
Having data readily available to you and being able to build pivot tables in Looker, something that I was not good at in Excel, I have to admit. It is really empowering because it enables you to base what you say in facts, and no one can argue with numbers, right?
It really does completely change the culture of your company when anyone can get close to data, anyone can get close to your customers. It means people start thinking a lot more autonomously and people start thinking about how they can have an impact without relying too heavily on other people.
I've not seen any other platform that makes the use of data so easy and so efficient.
There's basically no end to how we can continue to evolve Looker, which is really exciting.
Okay, thank you, Seb. Okay, and hopefully that's served its purpose of giving you a good introduction into why Looker